This is an SM Media production. Hi folks, and welcome to the debut edition of the Scottish Football Show right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, I'm going to be the host of this show, and I'm delighted to be here as we take a look at all the action that took place over the weekend in the Scottish Premiership. Delighted to welcome my special guest who will be dissecting the action with me this week, John Park, good friend of mine, good friend of the show. John, thanks very much for coming on, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Good. Quiet weekend, so
glad to have the football back.
Mate, I miss it myself, yeah. Miss getting to the games, miss seeing friends and stuff, but definitely. It's good to see it back on the TV.
We'll not be long till we're back in the crowds, I think.
That's it.
You ready to get tore into the action?
Definitely.
Very good. Right, so I'll just basically talk through what we're going to do during the show. We're going to dissect all 6 games, give our own kind of thoughts and opinions on them, and we're going to have a special segment after that. It's going to be the list entry of the week, where myself and John look back on someone who's been making the news of Scottish football for the wrong reasons. And then we're going to have a special one this week. We are going to offer our predictions, 6 games in, but we're going to do it anyway, on who we think's going to win the league and top 4, top 6, things like that. We're going to try and break down the league for everyone. You ready to start, mate? We're good to go?
Fantastic.
Let's start at the Super Seal Stadium, where Rangers went top of the league with a 2-0 win over Hamilton. Yanis Hadji and James Tavernier get the 2 goals. John, what did you think of the game? Did you watch it?
I did, sorry. I watched the full game. Again, positive to take. Rangers keep a clean sheet. Again, I thought still very laboured at times, very predictable as well when we went 2-0 up. Again, don't really ever kill teams off. I think there was still a nervy feeling on the touchline, especially from Gerrard. It was 2-0. I think McLaughlin obviously punched one over the bar. Hamilton didn't really threaten much. But again, at 2-0, if you lose a goal, it goes 2-1. It is nervy. Very, very wasteful, I think, as well, going forward at times.
When the team came out to start the game, the first thing I thought was, obviously Morelos was on the bench. We'll get to Morelos in a second, but it was a very, very forward-going formation. I liked the thought of Roof playing through the middle. I thought Atten was going to play, but he was obviously carrying a bit of an injury. But the first 20 minutes, you were thinking, they went 2-0 up, and you were thinking, they're going to score about 6 or 7. It just looked as if Hamilton couldn't keep up with the kind of direct threat of Rangers. I didn't think anyway. But there's something missing. There is something missing, I think. Particularly when it gets that final third, like we've seen how many times we've seen Tavernier, Barisic put the ball into the box, and there's nobody there. There's nobody there to get on the top of it. Roof had a few chances where his head, they were going over the bar, but there was a lot of balls just going missing. Just what do you think's going on? What do you think is the missing link?
I think they're needing, again, a lot of people don't like the thought of this, but Rangers could be looking for a type of like a Christie for Celtic. Again, very much got everything in his game. He can break play up, he can go forward, he's dangerous, he scores goals. There's still something lacking in the middle of the park. Again, I think personally, Kamara, he splits the fans' opinions. Davis looks a bit leggy, but again, when you're playing in a team, when you're winning, you're not conceding a goal, they're doing something right. The question for me is the boy Barker. He seems to obviously have Gerrard's fate. Gerrard obviously seems to like him. He must be doing well in training. Obviously, in Gerrard's interviews after the game, he has always mentioned about players doing well in training and bringing it into a game. For me, he looks as if he's going to be starting most games, but at the same time, is he really the player that Rangers need to challenge to obviously stop 10 in a row? I personally don't think so. I was really, really impressed with Kent at the weekend.
Yeah,
definitely. But as I say, I don't know. I think they need somebody like a Christie. Again, a lot of Rangers fans will not like that opinion, but it's really where they're at. They need someone that can, again, if it is maybe get into a different position, if it is, he can fall deep. Again, obviously, he can play up top as well, as we saw. Maybe not really as efficient. is what obviously an out-and-out striker would be. But no, as I say, I think they're going well. Listen, it's easy to criticise, but I don't think obviously they're going in the right direction.
My problem is 2-0 flattered Hamilton. I think as well. If it gets to a nitty-gritty stage towards the end of the season and it comes down to goal difference, you're looking back in games like this and thinking they could have had 4 or 5 at least. Like, there was chances there. I think you're right with Barker. Personally, I think Jordan Jones is a better option than Barker. I really do. I think the thing with Jordan Jones is I think Barker ticks the boxes in training, whereas I don't think Jones has got the kind of attitude that Gerrard likes in a player. Would you agree with that?
Personally, I think there's a lot more off the park as well with Jones. I don't think it's down to his footballing ability. I don't know if it's temperament, as you mentioned, obviously in training, if it's not the attitude, but I don't think, obviously. I mean, you saw last year, he's played in Europe, he's got Rangers into set up a goal that got Rangers into the group stage of Europa League.
Yeah.
The boy's obviously got ability, he's got international experience, but again, I just don't think Gerrard sees him as someone that's going to break into the team. But the worrying thing for me is he was frozen out for there 3-4 weeks again. He wasn't in the squad.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is good having a big squad to rotate with Rangers. Obviously, Gerrard feels that that's a massive positive, but fans obviously will question the rotation on the bench. Yeah, it's good to have rotation players that are injured and stuff, but again, if Stewart and Jones isn't the answer, they are still obviously on the edge of the team every week. But are these players really going to come on and make a difference?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We'll go with the defence as well. Defence set the kind of record of, if they're not opening of the season, I think the first 6 games have not conceded a goal. The defence looks a lot better than it's looked in a long time. I think Goldson's a clear starter. I think Goldson is obviously the first choice. Out of Helander and Balogun, I think both have been very impressive at the start of the season. Who do you think is kind of the preferred option out of the two? Again,
I think it just depends who they're playing. I think possibly it's going to be difficult. Balogun obviously started well. Had a brilliant game up at Pittodrie in the first game of the season. Strolled it the next couple of games and obviously picked up the injury. Helander's come in and done absolutely nothing wrong. Again, have they really been tested? Probably not. The Livy game didn't get tested at all. A few wee shaky moments. Hamilton not tested at all. Again, I think the biggest problem for me is coming maybe up against top opposition. With Helander, maybe pace-wise. Yeah, he can read the game good. But again, maybe 2 strikers up top, then that's when you'll maybe see weaknesses. But again, it's all what ifs and buts. But again, you can't really fault them. For me, Goldson in the last year and a half has been absolutely outstanding. Again, I personally think he's probably one of the first names in the team sheet for Gerrard every week.
Yeah.
Gets a lot of criticism, from the fans with his distribution for the back. Again, for me, it's all positives. He's always trying to play the ball forward. He's trying to get into areas of the park where it's going to hurt the opposition. But yeah, the defence has been solid. As I say, that record, I think it was 116 years. From 114 years, was it? For the clean sheet record for 6 consecutive clean sheets. Again, that obviously tells a story in its own.
And they've not put a foot wrong as well. And I think the thing, when McLaughlin came in as a kind of second choice keeper, everybody was like, McGregor's still your first choice option. I don't know if you can say that now, because McLaughlin's not put a foot wrong.
For me, McGregor, he's always going to be the first choice.
Yeah.
But again, at the weekend, McLaughlin's come in, he's been absolutely excellent. Again, very rarely tested.
Yeah.
Been called upon, been really good. I think he speeds the game up as well.
Aye, I thought that as well. Aye.
I mean, Tavernier, Barisic, they do like to play the ball back at times to switch play to the goalkeeper. It was one touch and it was bang out to the other side. Again, McGregor seems to take time on the ball. His distribution at times is, again, shall we say, terrible. At times it's just a kick and hope, but again, you can't fault the two of them. McGregor's been excellent, as I say, if they come back from down south. But McLaughlin, as I say, he's really been tested. But again, looked the part.
I think it's a good conundrum for Gerrard to have as well, because it's a kind of McGregor-Alexander thing that Smith had as well. Like, you've got 2 good options there. If one gets injured, if McGregor's going to be the first choice, McLaughlin can come in and do a job. Like, it's not as if you're you're taking a massive drop in class. Like McLaughlin looks as if he's the answer, kind of for that regard. We'll go on to who I thought was the man of the match, Ryan Kent. Obviously been the talk of some transfer talk lately as well. I personally wouldn't sell him for any money right now. I think he's the man Rangers need. I think last year it took time to get to what it was the year before. I think the price tag played a part in that, but now he's coming into his own. He looks outstanding. He was outstanding again on Saturday. I think he's going to be a very, very big game player for Rangers this season.
Yeah, as I say with the Kent, I've been a massive critic of Kent. The price tag obviously seemed to be a lot of weight on his shoulders when he come back there. Obviously the loan spell when he was here, he done really well, but again, didn't really take us to the next level. Obviously at the weekend, he was committing full back straight away. Really good link-up play, I thought, with Roof at times. I think the two of them could actually form a really good partnership.
Yeah.
Again, Roof's probably not going to be the 20 goals a season man. I think the link-up play with Kent, it could actually maybe allow Kent to add to his goal tally as well.
Yeah, I thought that as well.
But again, no, you can't sell Kent. As I say, Kent's head looks as if it's firmly at Ibrox. He's come out on social media, he's come out in the press, he's said that. And again, that's a massive hats off to Gerrard. It looks as if Gerrard's obviously kept his feet firmly in the ground. He's not get carried away. At the end of the day, it's not a bad thing for the club to have. Players been linked with like Leeds United down south for £15 million. Yeah. The days were long gone, maybe 5-6 years ago. So it's a massive positive for me. And again, if he is going to stay, then it ticks all the right boxes.
He was class on Saturday. I think as well, they've got his position because I thought kind of towards the start of the season he was playing a lot more towards the right, but he's been playing a bit through the middle lately, and I think that's making a difference. I think this could be the kind of time where I don't know if this kind of Rangers fans will agree with me here, but 3-5-2 could be an option because you've got the two full-backs who are pushing forward. You've no really worries at the back. If you play Balogun, Helander and Goldson and you play Jack, you don't need two holding midfielders. You don't need them. You don't need two holding midfielders against the likes of Hamilton and Livingston. If Jack in there and maybe a couple of midfielders alongside him, the likes of Kent and Aribo or Kent and Hadji, whoever you prefer, give Kent that kind of starring role through the middle and the two strikers up front. If it's going to be Morelos, who we'll get to again, if he's going to stay and play, try two up front because they've got the players to do it now. They've got a big squad and use it to your advantage, especially when you're struggling to break teams down, in my opinion.
Talking about the formation there, obviously it could be a really good shout. Obviously you've Tavernier gets a lot of a grave stick for the fans. Personally,
I don't think he's a good defender, but I think his defence has come on leaps and bounds in the past couple of years, but I still think there is that defensive issue. I really do.
A million %, but again, he adds to the goal tally again. It was a scrappy goal, sorry, but at the same time, he's in the right areas. Full-backs with the stick he's got with going to hiding. He plays for 90 minutes every week. He's always wanting the ball. He's always up the touchline. He's always taking full-backs on. Again, could his delivery be better? Probably at times it could.
Yeah.
As you say on the other side with Barisic, he's been exceptional this year. Really, really good. And again, obviously, as you mentioned, there's been a lot of speculation about moves with Barisic as well. But as you say with that, with Kent playing through the middle, when Aribo comes back into the team, possibly a midfield three of Jack, Hadji and Aribo, with Kent just in front.
Yeah.
Obviously with Tavernier wide, obviously as a full back going forward with Barisic. And I would probably play maybe Roof, but again let Kent and Roof have a bit of freedom. And it does allow other players to come into the game. I'm not too sure, obviously, as you mentioned there, about the boy Yatton. He's still really young. He does look a bit raw.
Yeah.
But again, under the guidance of Gerrard, it can only be a good thing, obviously, that he's been brought to the club. Seems obviously not a large fee, shall we say, but a reasonable fee as well.
Yeah.
For the times that we're at Ibrox at the moment. But yeah, no, definitely a lot of positives for the Rangers squad at the minute.
Aye, and we'll kind of touch on the last wee thing about Rangers is the star man. Been the star man for the past couple of years, Alfredo Morelos. Obviously been taken out of the squad, was back in on Saturday. What do you think about the Morelos situation? Would you be happy to sell him, or is it one of those things where the price is too good to turn down, but we need to see a lot more? Particularly, I think the problem with Morelos is this season, he's basically been told, whoever, if it's by his agent, that there's deals on the table for him to leave. But I think, particularly this season, Rangers need all the help we can get going forward. If we can get Morelos back to normal, keep him. But I think the money will be too good to turn down for Rangers. I really do.
I mean, obviously, there's no doubt there's a lot of transfer speculation. Lille come in with an offer, and again, there will be other clubs out there that's offering good money for him. At an age where he's at, he's still, again, people forget how young Morelos is. Morelos is young. He's obviously got a family. His wee one's just been born. At that age, your head's going to be turned no matter what. Again, it's one of the things. You're living in a foreign country. You've got speculation here, there. You've got fans getting on your back. At the minute, it's one of them. It's touch and go. I mean, you saw him at the weekend sitting in the stands on Sky. His attitude didn't look great for me, but for me, it's a positive. Does it show that he still cares? Again, for me personally, if he didn't care, if he didn't really want to be part of that team, I think he would have been away by now. I really think, obviously, Gerrard obviously thinks a lot of him, and I think as well Morelos is a really good bond with Gerrard. You maybe don't see it as much in the media. You maybe don't see it on, as you say, social media. You maybe don't see it in the news, but I really think if you can keep him, you can get his head in the game. It would be fantastic. But at the same time, if his head isn't in it and the right bid comes in, you've got to accept it.
Yeah.
Again, with the Itten and Roof saga, everyone thought a couple of weeks ago that's the reason the boys were coming in, because Morelos was gone. But again, it's all ifs and buts. I don't think we'll really know until it happens.
Rangers did need a couple of strikers in regardless, even if Morelos is staying, because even Morelos and Defoe, it's not enough. We saw Defoe got injured at the start of the season. We saw that Morelos can't carry it all by himself. You need the options in. But I'm just going to touch on Morelos quickly. If Morelos is desperate to leave the Scottish game, which all reports says that he's desperate for a kind of step up to whether it's going to be France or wherever it's going to be, is not trying your leg, which he's been doing. You've seen on the park the past few games. He hasn't been the Alfredo Morelos of last year or the year before. How does that look if you're there scouting Alfredo Morelos and you see that? Are you going to spend that money on him?
I don't think that's probably not going to take a massive effect on these clubs abroad. Obviously, they've got the money there. They're not having to worry about £2-3-4 million signings.
Yeah,
I don't think that would make any difference for a big club coming in for him. Everybody knows he's got ability. He's sure he can do it in the big stage. Yeah, he's maybe not scored in Old Firm games. Some of the Old Firm games in recent years, he's been unplayable.
Yeah.
I can remember one of the games at Parkhead a couple of years ago. Was it just over a year ago? I mean, Rangers ran riot that day. He was outstanding that day. But again, it's the wee things. If he doesn't score in games like that, that's what can maybe hinder him. Again, it's all ifs. I keep saying ifs and buts, but I personally think at the minute, if the deal's right, you've got to accept it.
Yeah, I think that as well.
If he does stay, though, it's a massive benefit.
Yeah, I think that as well. When you're going to, no matter what, Rangers are going to make a great bit of business out of that deal, because they've bought him for £1 million. They're going to sell him for what, 10, 15 times that. Yeah. It's the bit of business Rangers haven't done in a long time, as you said earlier on. It's a win-win for all parties. If it happens now, then Rangers get somebody in and move on. If it lasts another year, Morelos is there and can lead Rangers to maybe getting past Celtic, which is obviously this year. That's the target more than ever. We'll touch on Hamilton quickly as well.
Yeah,
I think they're probably favourites for the drop. They've always relied on their youth system. I thought their average age was 23 on Saturday, but you can only do that for so much. I think Brian Rice doesn't get enough credit for the job he's done there. Bringing through, he's not afraid to bring through young players, but this season I think it's going to be very, very difficult.
Completely agree with it. As I said, Hamilton has had a fantastic you'd say up for a good 10, 15 years now. But again, sometimes relying on youth, they can only take you so far.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there was one player on that park at the weekend that started for them, and Hodgson. It had a bit of international experience, obviously ex-Rangers player. Yeah. Again, you look across the park, there's no real experience here with the SPL. Aye. There's every other team in the league, even the likes of St Mirren that's just been promoted. They've managed to bring in players, like St Mirren managed to bring in Tate from Motherwell, and there's these teams. I think this year are a wee bit more streetwise. I think especially St Mirren, it's going to be a lot more street. I think Hamilton's time. Again, we say it every year, and they always obviously drop. But I think this year is. I think their time's up.
I think,
and again, it's really early. The thing with Hamilton is Hamilton pick up points when it's least expected. You saw last year at Ibrox, they went and beat Rangers at Ibrox. The type of games Hamilton win are against the likes of Ross County, scrappy games at home, Livingston, games where the other teams are probably favourites, and that's what keeps them up. Yeah. Again, I think this year they will fall short. They look really, really short up front, and I think in the middle of the park, after 20, 30 minutes, they were chasing shadows. And again, that's not to be critical of Hamilton. Brian Rice, as you say, has done a fantastic job, an absolutely brilliant job for he took that. He took charge. But again, as you say, I think the time's up.
Mm-hmm. But positive result for Rangers, top of the table. Hamilton sitting in 11th with 3 points. 6 games in. It's kind of early days, as you say, but Hamilton will not want to be there for much longer. We'll move on to Celtic against Motherwell. Celtic won 3-0 on Sunday. Bounced back pretty well from the shocking performance in midweek. It was a comfortable win, but the talking point again at the start of the game was Neil Lennon picked the exact same team that lost on Wednesday night against Ferencváros in the Champions League. What do you think, John, about that? Because I from the outside looking in, there's £7 million worth of talent up front on the bench that aren't starting. What's going on there? I just don't understand it. I really don't.
It looks as if it's a bit of a trust issue. Again, is it fitness? Is it attitude? Again, I don't think anybody really knows. At the weekend, obviously, I watched the game at the weekend, and for 35, 40 minutes, they were really, really laboured. Yeah, they were on top. Celtic had all the possession, and at times looked really, really good. But I think obviously it took the one moment of magic in the first half of Forest, which was a brilliant goal. Yeah. But again, the whole thing with the no striker, Celtic fans, again, I don't think will personally accept that. And again, you've saw it. I think a lot of Celtic fans have started to get on Lennon's back. Mm-hmm. But as a manager, you've got to take a firm stance, and I think that's what Lennon done. And again, keeping a clean sheet, scoring 3 goals, there's not much there to criticise.
Mm-hmm. I didn't understand the selection on Wednesday night when it came through. I was sitting with a Celtic fan when the selection came through, and the first thing we said to each other was, "What is going on?" Because that's very strange. Obviously, Edouard wasn't playing. We saw the game I kind of stuck on was last season's League Cup final against Rangers. Yeah. Celtic are an entirely different team without Edouard. As every team's going to be without a player like that who is so important to the team. But I understand Ajeti not starting because he's maybe lacking match fitness. I think there was a stat he played 13 minutes of football in a year or something. Yeah. But Klimala's been in and out the team. He scored in the first game of the season against Hamilton. Are you telling me that Klimala isn't you can't put Klimala on for 60 minutes, and if they are struggling, bring on Ajeti on Wednesday night?
The worrying thing, I think, for most Celtic fans will be that Klimala's been injury-free throughout pre-season. Yeah. He's played in pre-season games, and you're starting with Christie up front. And again, as I mentioned, Christie there, the type of player Rangers could be needing, the boy looked completely ruined up top.
Mm-hmm. It takes away from his game, yeah, definitely. Takes away from his game.
He was dropping too deep. he didn't really have the interchange with McGregor in the middle of the park. He wasn't able to go out wide, drop deep. Again, it just looked a very disjointed performance. But again, is Celtic going to go and get another striker?
It's hard to say. Like,
I don't think they will.
no.
But yeah, the whole striker scenario is really, really strange.
Yeah, and I think as well, it was Neil Lennon came out after the game and Wednesday and said that players that didn't want to be there let him down. But I don't think that's a great thing to be coming out and saying. Like,
no,
it obviously came out the next day about the story about Iron and Charm wanting valuations, but I don't. That's strange to me. Again, but I just don't understand where that's coming from. They've been very, very poor at the back, I thought, since the start of the season, Celtic. I thought on Wednesday night, that second goal was so avoidable.
Yeah.
Just how... But they've won the game on Sunday. That's kind of all that matters regarding the league. But as you say, they did look laboured in the first half. They did look as if the kind of battle scars had shown for Wednesday night. And it was...
I think it was just an error. I think there was still...
Aye.
I mean, no matter what team you are, teams across the planet, Man City, Man United... And the pressure gets to you, the nerves are starting to show a wee bit, I think.
Yeah.
But as you say, I mean, 3 points, when you are playing bad, scoring 3 goals, you can't really monitor that.
Yeah. And as well as that, like, the second goal, the Forrest scored... Forrest, to me, again, like the first goal, that's kind of the most Forrest done in a long time. I think he's been one of the kind of few players who has been off the boil as of late. I would probably bring McGregor into that as well, but they played pretty well on Sunday. The second goal, like we're talking about strikers. The second goal Celtic scored was the finish from Ajeti. That's a great goal for a striker. Like, just if you watch it back, Ayer brings the ball to his feet. Ajeti finds that kind of yard of space and rattles it into the net. That's what you want from a centre forward. And I didn't get how one of them could have started on Wednesday night.
I think the thing as well, you're talking about Ayer, he's another player that a lot of Celtic fans are kind of split decision on.
Yeah.
Me personally, I think he's a fantastic player. Again, at times, as you say, he can be ropey, but again, he's really, really good with the ball at his feet. That was a great pass through to Ajeti, and obviously a calm finish. For me, the 2 central defensive pairing, it does look as if teams could get at them.
Yeah.
For me, I'd be hitting Celtic's fullbacks.
Frimpong,
there's no doubt Frimpong and Greg Taylor are really good going forward. Again, a bit like Tavernier at Rangers. I think bringing Taylor in at left back when Celtic brought him in, a lot of people's expecting him to be on par with Tierney. Yeah. And I don't think, obviously, he's brought that to the team. Frimpong as well can be really, really raw. Don't get me wrong, the boy looks a great talent. I think he obviously will go into a lot of good things in his career. But yeah, it doesn't look the Celtic team of the past. Even obviously, rewind maybe 6-7 months ago, it looks as if they could be doing an extra couple of players themselves to freshen things up. And again, the same as Rangers, whether that's going to happen, nobody will know.
Aye, it's weird to say because last season Celtic were getting so much credit for the way they were playing. Like when Brendan Rodgers left and Neil Lennon came in, the first thing a lot of Celtic fans thought was Neil Lennon was going to change that style of football. He didn't do that. He didn't do that to start off. Like they were playing some really, really good stuff. I think as well the thing with Neil Lennon is I think he does split the Celtic support in a way of when Neil Lennon was announced as a full-time manager, a lot of Celtic fans did want the big name.
Yeah.
We heard kind of Benitez, Villas-Boas was mentioned as well. Whereas a lot of Celtic fans have that affection for Neil Lennon because of obviously his years of a player. I think it's very, very. It's obviously going to be very, very difficult for Lennon now. I would say it's going to be tough for them to get into Europa League as well because I think that, as you say, like I've never been impressed with El Hamed as a defender. I think going forward he's good, but I've never been impressed with him as a defender. And I would Taylor.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't mean to, but I'd mentioned obviously Frimpong there, obviously. He come on. But again, as you say, that there doesn't seem to be a settle back for it at the moment with Celtic.
No.
A lot of Celtic fans like playing the three at the back. I think they look a better team playing the three in defence. But again, it's the same as this time last year. You wouldn't have been bringing up these questions about a Celtic team.
No.
These wouldn't have been the questions. There wouldn't have been. Celtic would have been flying. And again, you're talking about the Ferencváros game the other night. With 10-15 minutes to go in that game, that would have been a game last year where if you're sitting there as a Celtic fan, you're expecting a goal to come.
Oh, yeah,
a goal would have came. You would have been able to bring on a player that would have changed the game. At the minute, I looked at Celtic's bench at the weekend. It doesn't look a strong bench.
No, I've said that for months. Actually,
Celtic had Celtic had 2 or 3 youth players on the bench, which is good to see again. Good to see, obviously, young talent on the bench. But I just think if you're a Celtic fan at the moment, there's a bit of an nervy edge that I think would possibly have been across the other side of the city at Rangers 12 months ago. That's the type of performance Rangers, I think, would have put in 12 months ago. Maybe just under a year ago, I think they would have put that performance in. You don't really know where the goal's coming from until that bit of magic with Forrest. And again, as you mentioned with Forrest would score goals like that for fun 6-7 months ago, and you wouldn't have blinked an eye and let it go with that. But he looks as if he's playing in a bit of a shell at the minute. I think it's a fear factor as well.
I think the problem with Forrest is, I'd say that's a similar problem as we talked about Tavernier earlier. There's nobody really challenging him for his position.
No.
Like, he's been off the boil for a wee while. I've never, in the past few months, said to myself after watching Celtic, James Forrest impressed me. But I just think he's been kind of lacklustre, a bit disappointing any time I've kind of saw him. Sunday, he scored a decent goal, but that was probably his best game I'd seen him for a while. But we'll touch on the defence as well. The news coming through tonight is that Celtic have agreed a fee for Shane Duffy from Brighton. That could be a big signing for Celtic.
Could be a massive signing. I mean, that's a player that's played at the top level, international quality. Again, that's a massive positive for Celtic, definitely.
Yeah, and as well as that,
who does he replace? Yeah,
I think now, like obviously with the Champions League money not being there now, it brings in a fact that probably somebody's going to be going. Is it going to be Aya? Is it Ncham? Is it maybe even Edouard? I don't know. I don't think Edouard will leave this season. I think he'll leave probably next season, I think. But it does bring in the fact that if Duffy's coming in, then it asks a question that it could be maybe Aya could be the one kind of leaving.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. Obviously, there's been rumours of Aya leaving as well.
Yeah.
I think a big question for me is, I mean, nobody's really picked up on it. Celtic's goalkeeper. Again, a bit of an unknown over here. I saw the goal, Ferencváros' second goal. For me, as a goalkeeper, you don't get beat there.
No.
You don't get beat. And again, he's been untested very much similar to McLaughlin and McGregor over at Rangers. I think as well that's something that when Celtic maybe come up against better clubs, maybe against the likes of your Aberdeens and Hibs, it'll be interesting to see as well what the new goalkeeper's like.
Yeah. It's an unknown.
Yeah, no, as I say, it's everything's unknown. It's still early in the season.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of twists and turns. Players will probably hit form that you don't expect. Other players will go the opposite direction. But it's all ifs and buts.
Yeah, finally get David Turnbull in as well. Celtic, like that's been a year in the build. Like that's been a signing they've desperately want done. He'll contribute as well. The question is, does he start? I don't think he will start. And I think the kind of front three, the midfield three, is always going to be Brown, McGregor, and Christie in big games. But Turnbull's a great option to have if coming off the bench or if one of them are injured. Yeah,
I mean the boy Turnbull's he is a great player.
Yeah.
Obviously get the bad injury and he was out for a while.
Yeah.
But he's fought back. He's fought hard to obviously get back to that position again. He's moved to Celtic, and as you saw, obviously Motherwell fans idolise him for being such a young player. A lot of young players move on, and that's it. You've got your move to the old firm, but obviously it shows you how much Motherwell's going to miss him. And obviously talking on Motherwell, I know obviously probably going to move on to that.
Yeah.
They look a complete shadow of the side they were last year.
Yeah, they finished third last season without Turnbull. Like Turnbull didn't kick a ball last season, and
Yeah.
Like, it's weird because you wouldn't say a lot of you wouldn't say there's been a lot of changes at Motherwell.
No.
If anything, they've improved. They brought in Stephen O'Donnell from Kilmarnock, who I would say was very, very poor on Sunday.
I was just about to touch on that. I thought he was terrible.
Yeah.
I thought he was really poor. Again, the thing for me is the middle of the park with Motherwell, as you mentioned, the boy Donnelly's injured as well.
Yeah.
For me, I would say he's probably one of their best players.
Yeah.
But yep, I think as well behind the scenes at Motherwell at the minute, Stephen Robinson, he's feeling the pressure.
Yeah.
I think he's feeling the pressure himself. Never mind, obviously coming for the media. Probably not even. I just think from day one, I watched the game up at Ross County, the first game of the season, on the Monday night, and they don't look as if they've improved one bit.
No.
Yeah, they get the one through the week in Europe against Glentoran, but again, as a full-time club, you would expect,
definitely,
to be winning their games.
Yeah, they were probably the surprise package of last season, but it's not been a very good start. Like, I would say you kind of said Donnelly was the best player. I'm a real big fan of Alan Campbell.
Campbell's good player.
I really, really like Alan Campbell, but I thought I didn't think he kind of got going on Sunday. It's difficult to say. Obviously, we're 6 games in and we can kind of say Motherwell sitting bottom of the league just now, but all it takes is 2 or 3 wins and then they're right back up towards the top 6. So it's not at the stage where alarm bells are ringing, but it certainly is something that kind of needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
Now to kind of, but I think Motherwell will be fine, but for starts it's not been great. But yeah, it was. I mean, Celtic played pretty well in the second half. I thought, as you said, they were quite laboured, but decent result, back to winning ways for Celtic, and we'll see what happens with them. We'll move on to Kilmarnock against Dundee United. It's a very, very easy win for Kilmarnock, the first win of the season. 4-0, great performance for Kilmarnock. First win for Alec Dyer's team. John, what did you think of the game?
I watched part of the highlights. I'll be honest, I didn't see the full game. I thought Kilmarnock looked really impressive. The boy Kabamba up front, he looks a real good find.
Yeah.
I think he could form a good partnership with Brophy. Obviously, Brophy hadn't really been playing much. I personally think the SPL Brophy's a really, really good player as well.
Yeah, so that.
Always seems to do quite well against Old Firm. But yeah, no, as I say, you won 4-0 against a Dundee United team that I think they'll struggle this year. First 2 weeks of the season, I didn't think they would, but no, Kilmarnock really, really looked the part. I think it was possibly the third goal. Third goal was absolutely excellent. That could be a goal of the season contender.
Yeah,
brilliant move and then a brilliant finish.
It was excellent.
But no, I think Dyer's steadied the ship. It was a shaky start to the season.
Yeah.
But I think Kilmarnock again this year could probably be the surprise package.
Yeah, I think
a lot of people were tipping them. I mean, 2 or 3 weeks ago, people were tipping them to be relegated. I don't think that will be the case.
No.
I think Kilmarnock could threaten to get the top 6 again.
Yeah.
There's not really many teams that I think will go to Rugby Park and take away good results. But no, a lot of positives for Kilmarnock. If you're a Kilmarnock fan, you've got to be buzzing at the minute.
Yeah, Kabamba, as you say, he does look a good signing. 2 goals on Saturday, linked up well with Brophy. I thought they were both really, really good. As well as that, goals are kind of coming from out the midfield as well. The likes of Bart, Kilty, McKenzie, they all played well. All plaudits to them. But the big takeaway was how impressive the front 2 were. Dundee United as well, I would say Dundee United will feel hard done by that result, because I think at times we were playing some decent stuff. I thought they were okay. I don't think they'll struggle. I think they'll be fine to get I don't think probably top 6 is probably out of their reach, but I think they were probably hard done by with that result. The big thing as well, I think, with Dundee United is they're a different team without Shankland. Would you agree with that, John?
Yeah, massively, mate. I think Shankland brings a lot. Listen, Shankland gets questioned whether he's good enough to take the step up. I think any team that has a chance of taking Shankland, I mean, for me, it's a small gamble. I think Dundee United's done really, really well to obviously keep a hold of him this season. And again, obviously, it's unfortunate that he's not playing at the moment. They do look a completely different team. As you mentioned, Dundee United last week against Celtic at home. Yeah, they frustrated Celtic, held them really late until obviously I think it was about the 84th, 85th minute.
Yeah.
But the first half, they had a couple of chances, but the second half, they looked dead in their feet. They sat in and sat in. There's only obviously so long against a Celtic team that you're going to obviously defend without conceding. They didn't look a threat at all going forward, I don't think, in the second half. The distance between obviously the strikers and the midfield was a good 20, 30 yards at times. Obviously Celtic defence last week, they were playing quite high up. As I mentioned, I didn't see a lot of the Kilmarnock game. You'd mentioned there, obviously, you feel that they were a wee bit hard done by. Will there be a lot of teams that takes 4 goals off them? Probably not. But again, I think they jump up. They won the championship really, really easy last season, and they ran away with it and end up. But I think they jump up again. They could be down there battling at the end of the season to stay up. I don't really see without Shankland where a lot of goals are coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of teams in the league that are worse off than them, but I still think they'll be fine. Once Shankland gets fit, I think he'll contribute a lot. I think as well though with Dundee United, I don't understand the appointment of manager. I don't like Mickey Mellon. He's never played up here. This is his first job in Scotland. But for Robin Nielsen to leave Dundee United to go to Hearts, I understand obviously there's a personal factor in there. But Dundee United would have been far better than Nielsen, I think. I really do. If Nielsen had stuck around. But obviously
I think Dundee, as you say, mate, I think Dundee United would have been a lot better off. At the same time, for me, Hearts are a massive club. People forget. In Scotland, Hearts are a really, really big club. And he obviously has a connection in the club. He obviously gets on well with the backroom team. He gets on well, obviously, with the club's officials and stuff. I think that was a done deal well before the end of the season, for me personally.
Yeah, it could have been.
I don't think that was just... Obviously, it took everybody by surprise. But I think Nielsen knew he was tying Castlebound maybe a good month or two before the end of the season.
Yeah, possibly. But it was a good result for Kilmarnock. Dundee United are still above them in the league, so I'd say both those teams are going to be fine this season. But Kilmarnock deserve a lot of credit for their performance during the week. We'll move on to the...
I tell you one player, mate. I tell you one player I'd just like to make a comment on. Played against them a couple of times in the youth, through the youth. The boy Finlay at Kilmarnock. Mm-hmm. I think he's come on leaps and bounds. Looks an absolute class act. Again, I think he came through the Celtic youth ranks. Yeah. And got let go with Celtic maybe 3-4 years ago now. That boy looks really solid. Yeah. And again, Kilmarnock's defence, they're sticky. There'll not be many teams go to Rugby Park and pick up good results, as you say. No. I think Broadfoot, he uses the old head. Again, he probably frustrates opposition fans. He can leave a foot in now and again. But for me, that's things you want to see for a centre-half. Using the experience. And as you mentioned, obviously, Mackenzie's been around about the club now for years. Again, he comes through the youth setup. Kilmarnock, they kind of go unnoticed, I think, a lot. A lot of their players go unnoticed. But they always seem to find their feet. Yeah. They escaped relegation a few years back. But I think they're a stable club now in the Premiership. I can't see them getting relegated at all. If anything, as I mentioned, I think they could probably sneak into the top 6 again. Yeah, I think that's exactly what will happen. I think they're a pretty good contender for top 6. We'll move on to the other big game on Sunday, was Hibs against Aberdeen. Aberdeen went to Easter Road and picked up a 1-0 victory through a Lewis Ferguson penalty. It was a tough one for Aberdeen. Obviously, they've been kind of in the press for the wrong reasons as of late, but they've done the job on Sunday. Listen, there was a lot of questions about that Aberdeen team. The first game of the season, again, they were terrible, I thought, against Rangers. Didn't carry any forward threat. Looked really, really shaky at the back, and that's not an Aberdeen team, as you mentioned in the past. Normally, Aberdeen games against Rangers at Pittodrie, they're in your face for the off, they're creating chances. They break up play, they make things difficult. The first game of the season, they were really poor. From then, it's back to the Aberdeen team. They looked a threat going forward. And obviously everybody's probably want to know about McCrory. I thought McCrory was excellent at the weekend.
Yeah, I thought it was.
But it's a type of team that McCrory's going to thrive in.
Yeah.
McCrory likes pressure. He likes being in a type in Aberdeen side. This year, I don't think it was ever going to work out for him at Ibrox. I think the style of play, I think the way Gerrard wants to set up, I don't think that would personally have suited Ross either.
I think he would have.
And again, I think it's a fantastic move for him.
Yeah, I think
Aberdeen are a big club.
I think he'll feel hard done by as well at Rangers, because I think it was just kind of wrong place at the wrong time. Whereas, like, he's going into an Aberdeen team. I think he's going to be one of the signings of the season. I think he'll fit into that Aberdeen team so well. You could make a case he's probably too good for Aberdeen, because he went down to England and done really well for Portsmouth last season.
He obviously got to the playoffs with Portsmouth, but I don't think the Portsmouth thing really worked out for him. As you mentioned, the loan that he's obviously on at Aberdeen, with obviously he's going to sign there, that would probably have helped him last season. But again, obviously, I don't think that's a thing Gerrard or the club would probably want to do in relation to obviously strengthening another club in the SPL. But I think just the whole McCrory situation, the boy done well at Rangers. I just don't think, obviously, Rangers was a club for him. But as you mentioned, the Aberdeen scenario, it's a perfect fit for him. And it looks as if, obviously, he's settled in really well.
Yeah, he does. I think he's going to fit in very well with that Aberdeen team. I think the international breaks just came at the right time for Aberdeen to get kind of players fit. They are missing kind of Curtis Main up front. Dylan McGeoch will get time to get fit. But I think it's a very, very good result for them. I think it's probably kind of the result they needed. They're now up to 4th in the league. They beat Hibs, who are still sitting in 2nd, but I thought they were very, very poor on Sunday. Hibs, I thought Hibs, I really, really think Hibs will be kind of top 4, but I wasn't impressed with their performance on Sunday against Aberdeen.
I watched Hibs against Dundee United at Tannadice a few weeks back. The middle of the park, they looked, it just didn't look convincing at all. The boy Gogic that come in for Hamilton. Yeah. People were saying that would be a great signing. I don't think that's the type of signing Hibs really need. Hibs are all a bit trying to get at you. I think Gogic is a good player, but the likes of Malin, who was obviously who's been talked up about the next big thing, he was frozen out there for a few weeks. Yeah. I would have Malin, if I was a Hibs fan, I would want Malin on my team every week. The boy can pass, he obviously chips in with the odd goal. Very dangerous for set pieces. I think up top as well, that Doidge and stuff, are they really going to cut it? I don't think so. I think for me, obviously Canberry moved on from Hibs, but I think he's the type of player that would have been a great fit for them this season. But yeah, Aberdeen obviously, they won the game. Ferguson chipping in with a goal again, who I think Ferguson's a smashing player. There was obviously reports of him moving to Ibrox, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't see that happening.
But yeah, Hibs, people were saying that they were stick-ons for finishing 3rd. As you mentioned, I think they could be borderline to finish in the top 6.
I think up front they're okay. I like the signing of Kevin Nisbet. I think Kevin Nisbet is a very, very good striker. I think he will contribute. But I think Doidge is pretty good as well. I don't have worries about them going forward. I think the problem is in the kind of midfield area, as you say, at the back as well. Another player I kind of want to touch on as well, who just arrived at the weekend, is Jamie Murphy for Rangers. I think Jamie Murphy will be such a big player for Hibs next season.
Great signing for Hibs. Again, he's a model professional for obviously young ones watching and stuff. He's had a great career. Obviously went down to Burton, scored quite not a lot of goals, but had a good goal to games ratio at Burton when he went down there on loan. He's come back up. Obviously, I think Scotland was the right choice for him. I think obviously he's settled here and stuff with family now. But no, that is a really, really good signing for Hibs.
Yeah, I just want to touch on it as well with Jamie Murphy. Like, he was so unlucky with the bad injury he got for Rangers against Kilmarnock.
Terrible injuries.
It's been so unfortunate what's happened to him, because I think if he'd stayed fit, he'd have been a big player for Rangers. But you can't help what happens to you. But I think if he stays fit and he goes to Hibs, and he's now at Hibs, I think he'll contribute very, very good for them. We'll touch on as well. I just want to touch on Ryan Porteous, who I think's a really good player. I think he is a good player, but again, got caught in a very bad incident on Sunday. I thought he was lucky to stay on the park. I'm a fan of him as a player, but as a professional, I really don't have any time for him. I really don't. I think he's one of those players I just can't take to. I think as a player, I think he's a good defender, but I just don't have any time for him on the park. I think he's very, very lucky to be on the park on Sunday for what he done. Yeah,
I mean, the boy Porteous is obviously, he's got ability. Likewise, as you were saying, it looks as if he's always just want to do that wee extra bit.
Yeah.
And again, as a teammate, it's good obviously to have a player that's want to be the boot in, a centre half, or you want to give the opposition fear, but at times you have a bit of a screwless. He just looks as if he could jump into tackles. He has a walking yellow card. Obviously, he did really, really bad. The horror challenge against Rangers last year at Easter Road, and I think it was a Friday night game.
Yeah.
And then at the weekend, he's obviously come through the youth system as well at Hibs, I believe. But again, yeah, he's obviously got talent. But I think obviously temperament and stuff, he will obviously need to get that settled down.
Yeah, it's going to be. He's in the. I think he's in the Scotland squad as well. Like, I think it's under 21 squad he's in. But there's a player there. I just think his discipline is all wrong. I really do. I think it's going to. If he doesn't sort that out, I think it's going to be a waste of a very, very promising defender, which I think is something as well that Scotland need. I think he is that. I think if he sorts that out, he could be that good. I really do. I think there is a player there. It's just that discipline that bothers me regarding him. But as I say, good result for Aberdeen, gets them to 4th. Hibs are still sitting 2nd, so it's not a terrible result for them. But I thought it was a pretty good performance for Aberdeen, and I thought Hibs were pretty disappointing. But as I say, we're 6 games in. There's still a lot more to go, but very positive result for Aberdeen. Another team who picked up a promising result was Livingston, a 1-0 win at home to Ross County. That was their first win of the season. That takes them off bottom of the league to 10th place. John Guthrie got the goal. Comfortable win for Livingston. 2 well-organised sides. It was a pretty boring game to watch by all accounts, but the big story with Livingston is obviously the sale of Lyndon Dykes to QPR. John, what do you think of him?
I think Dykes, I mean, there was rumours of him obviously moving across to Ibrox, but I don't think, truthfully, that was ever going to happen. Don't get me wrong, an absolutely brilliant bit of business for Livingston.
Yeah.
A right community club. Again, another team that obviously gives players a chance, but to bring in that type of money and obviously get them offloaded for that type of money, that's a great bit of business for Livingston. Will it leave them a wee bit short up top? It probably is going to leave them up short. I think Dykes' all-round game obviously helped Livy the way they play.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he didn't score a lot of goals, but again, he always brought a lot of players into the game. Personally remember a game last year. I think it was both Old Firm games he played. He gave the Rangers and Celtic centre-backs a really hard time of it. I think one of the games was in the Cup against Rangers, and I think it was a league game against Celtic at home. But again, Livy's, they're one of the teams that I don't think I think they'll stay up. And again, for them, staying up in the Premier League, that's a massive achievement again if they do. Yeah, it's certainly on, but they seem to find a way to win the type of games, and they play to a way that other teams hate getting up there. You saw obviously Rangers struggling. Rangers struggled up there a couple of weeks back. Never really looked like scoring at all. When they offload players, they seem to bring in players that just suit the way the club play. It's no pretty, but they get the job done.
Yeah, as well as that, I obviously said, a great piece of business for Livingston to get Lyndon Dykes to QPR for $2 million. Another team who benefited out of that was Queen of the South, who I think they got a 10% sell-on clause, so they're picking up around 250 grand. So that's a tremendous bit of business for them. But they've went and got a replacement. They've went and brought in Anthony Stokes, former Celtic player. I think Stokes will be a really, really big player for them as well. Like, to get that experience in, probably not the same kind of player as Lyndon Dykes, but to have a player like that in your team is always a positive.
Yeah, completely agree. As I said, you're not a bad player, obviously, if you've played with Celtic, you've played internationally, you've won cup finals. I mean, Stokes is a great player. But again, it's all down to off the park matters, I think, with Stokes as well. Again, whether he's going to settle or whether he's going to, I don't mean bring trouble to the club, but I think obviously he's had a troubled time the last 2 or 3 years, and obviously he's been abroad. But again, as I say, Holt, the manager, he's done a fantastic job at Livy.
Oh, definitely.
Holt's done an unbelievable job at Livy. And again, they look at a team there I think they'll stay in the league this year. I think there is worse teams in them. And they always they seem to pick up points, again, when unexpected. But a very routine one, I think, at the weekend. I did watch, as I say, part of that game as well at the weekend. And it was really, really routine. They didn't really ever look in any trouble at all.
I think the red card played a factor in that as well. It was Tremarco, I think, that got the red card. But aye, once that kind of happened, I think Livingston did take advantage. I just want to touch on a wee thing as well with Livingston. I think Jason Holt and Craig Sibbald could be the kind of two players that kind of make their team. I think Holt was a great piece of business to bring him in a free transfer for Rangers. I've been impressed with Sibbald since he was at Falkirk. I think
very good player.
He's probably not
really good young player.
He's probably not kicked on the way I thought he would, because at Falkirk I thought he was very, very good. He played in the same team as a player called Jay Fulton, who you might remember, John. He went to Swansea. Swansea was a. I thought Sibbald was in line for a move like that, but don't know if kind of other factors were there. But I think those two will be the big kind of players for Livingston this season. I don't think they'll have any bother staying up. I think they'll be up towards kind of top of the bottom six. I don't think they'll get top six like they did last year, but I don't think there's any trouble in them getting relegated. I think they're a comfortable outfit. Ross County, the team they beat, touch on them. They've been pretty good so far. It's a good start to the season for them. I think that was their first defeat of the season, maybe their second defeat. But I do think they're going to struggle to score goals. I do think once it gets to the kind of nitty gritty of the season, I think there's the only kind of real goal scorer they've got is Billy McKay, who has done it for Inverness. He's done it for Ross County back the past couple of seasons. But they need a couple more goal threats, I think.
I tell you, one player I've been really impressed by when watching Ross County games is the boy Ross Stewart. He's been he's been a really, really good addition to Ross County. Watched them the first game of the season, as I said, against Motherwell. The boy was unplayable for 90 minutes. His work rate was excellent. He knows where to go. I think that's actually a player in the next couple of years that could get a good move. If I believe, I mean, I might be wrong, but I think he did used to play in the juniors.
He did. I
think he used to play with Kilmarnock Rangers.
He could have done,
so again, taking that step up, obviously moving up to the Highlands, and that can be difficult, but I think he's been really, really good. He's looked the part. I think a big miss for Ross County this year will be Marcus Fraser, the captain, in defence. I think he was a real leader for them. Obviously, I think he's moved to St Mirren now.
Yeah.
But again, Ross County, as you say, have had a good start. I think the bottom half of the table this year, I think that'll go down to the wire again.
Aye.
I think there's teams down there that can all take points off each other. I personally think Ross County, I do reckon they might be in that playoff position at the bottom of the league. But they're another team that picks up a lot of points at home. They don't, obviously, I don't believe they travel well, but they do pick up a lot of points at home. And I was really, really impressed. As I mentioned, the boy Ross Stewart, really, really impressed with him. It will be interesting to see the next year or two if he stays at Ross County, if he moves on. Yeah,
he's definitely one to watch. I did notice that as well. I would like to see him get more goals, but I hope you're right. I hope he is that kind of player for them, because they do need that kind of goal scoring thing that I think they'll struggle with that if they don't pick that up. But aye, good result for Livingston. Ross County still sitting 5th place, so it gets Livingston off the bottom of the league. But we'll move on to the final game of the weekend. St Johnstone were 1-0 winners against St Mirren at McDiarmid Park. Stevie May got the goal. A great assist for Craig Conway, who I'll touch on. I think he'll be a very, very important player for St Johnstone. I think St Mirren's injuries have got the better of them that on Saturday. They kind of started pretty well in the first 5 games of the season, but I think St Johnstone did outplay them and thoroughly deserved the victory. Did you see the game, John?
Again, just parts of the game. I did watch highlights, and again, the highlights were fully based on St Johnstone. St Mirren looked as if they very rarely threatened. As you mentioned, in Craig Conway, another player that's had a great career. He's played down south. He knows the Scottish game. And again, another team, St Johnstone, I think, when Tommy Wright left, which, as I say, I mentioned, the guy done a fantastic job.
Yeah.
They could have got into a route where things off the park and bringing in players. But again, they're another club that, as I mentioned, in the bottom 6, where these type of St Johnstone seem to be settled in the SPL. They struggled, obviously, a large part last year, but they're a strange team to watch. I think St Johnstone are not pretty on the eye, but they've got players that know the league. They've got players that obviously know how to play in big games. I think they'll be all right as well this year.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Stevie May. He was at Aberdeen. Didn't really do much at Aberdeen. Didn't really, as I mentioned, I don't think he was ever going to be a type of player Aberdeen wanted to keep.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, watching it, they looked as if they won comfortable enough, to be fair.
Yeah, it was a good performance. I think they could be a good contender for top 6. I think they were pretty good. I think Callum Davidson as well was the right man to take them forward. I think having that Tommy Wright factor of the fact that Callum Davidson was his assistant, you still have that style of play with Callum Davidson. Yep. But I think St Mirren as well, they could struggle as well. I think they had a few players missing on Saturday, but I think they will struggle. They brought in a couple of good defenders, but again, as I said with Ross County, I don't think they've got enough up front.
Yeah.
But I think St Johnstone could be pretty good for top 6 this season. Well, that was the recap of the 6 games of the week. We'll move on to a special segment here on the Scottish Football Show, where myself and John are going to look at a player who has been catching our eye for the wrong reasons, and we're going to have him as our list entry of the week. And when it comes to the end of the season, myself and John are going to rank who we think has been the worst out of the lot. John, do you want to go first, or do you mind if I go first?
On you go, you fire away, buddy.
Right. I'm going to start this week with my first edition. A lot of Rangers fans won't thank me for this, but I'm going to put Alfredo Morelos in there for this week, and I'm going to tell you why. As a player, I love Alfredo Morelos. I think Alfredo Morelos at times can be unplayable. I think all you need to do is watch his performances in Europe, where he was outstanding. Some of his goals were frighteningly good, but his attitude at the start of the season has been all wrong, in my opinion. I don't think he's been anywhere near the player that Rangers need. I think if you're as I said at the start of the show, if you're a player, if you're a scout looking at a player and you see the kind of attitude he's been showing lately, would you take a punt on him? I really don't know, but I haven't been impressed the past few weeks with Alfredo Morelos at all. I think if he's on his day and he's in form, I think he's such a vital player for Rangers. And it's frustrating as well, because you're wanting him to do well, because I think at times he does get a hard rap. Like, I do think there's a big thing in that kind of here where I think he is a target. I think he's a target, but I think at times he doesn't help himself. Would you think, John? Do you think I'm being a bit harsh, or would you agree with me?
I think in recent weeks it's probably been a wee bit harsh on him. As I mentioned, obviously, at the start, I think at an age where Morelos is at, there's a lot of things happening off the park as well. Obviously, the birthday's wee one there that he's just obviously had, and I don't know. It's hard. You hear people speaking all the time, and you see people on social media and people on obviously Twitter and Facebook talking about it. I think the club's done as well as they can to keep his feet on the ground at the moment with what's happening. There's no question when Morelos is on his game and Morelos' head's in the game, he's unplayable. You saw that. I've saw that. I think it would be a massive loss. I think as well, on the park in recent months, he probably has settled down a bit. Again, his disciplinary record looks a lot better. At times last year, as you mentioned, I don't think he helped himself. I think he brought a lot of it on. I think the incident up at Pittodrie with McKenna, the kick out, I think obviously the Old Firm at Parkhead when him and Brown clashed. It's things obviously as a manager and a fan you don't want to see. There's no obviously getting away from the fact that he has an exceptional talent. I don't think that the whole saga the last couple of weeks with attitude and stuff, I don't think, truthfully, that's really going to affect a move. If Leo have the money there and Leo want him, and Leo offer the right amount, I think yeah, the club will accept it. But again, one thing I want to say about Alfredo is he's had a right hard time off the media in the last year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Especially the last 6 months. I can't remember the last time where a player in Scotland, at the ability that he has, get as much abuse and as much grief from media than what young Alfredo has. And again, yeah, he can bring it on himself, but for a player, you want to admire a player like that.
I admire him. His work he does, the work he does off the
if you're a
park's
Scottish media,
tremendous. Yeah,
yeah, that's their job. The
yeah,
Scottish media's job to bring stories up like that. But I just feel that the guy's head could have been turned as well with what's happening on the media. There's no question these players see these tweets. These players obviously see news
yeah,
articles.
absolutely, yeah.
And that a young player coming from Columbia, and what a lot of people forget as well is his English is very poor, which obviously that's nothing to be ashamed about. But I think as well that's maybe starting to play a part on him now, where he's getting so much grief, so much abuse. It's maybe just got to him. At the same time, it would get to anybody. It's natural.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Human to feel that, but
yeah.
I think if he was to come back into the team, are we going to see the same Morelos as what we did in the past? Probably, probably not.
I don't think we will, John.
A couple of weeks ago when he got when everything was happening, and then Gerrard obviously brought him back into the team. He scored a couple of goals. That's great to see. It's brilliant to see. And as a player, obviously, I think he's very, very well respected in the dressing room. So he is. But no, the whole Morelos saga, I think, as it coming to an end, I don't think anybody will really know until it does happen. But
yeah,
I do feel that in recent times he's been very, very hard done by, on and off the park. And I think as well, he carries that reputation now when referees. If it was to happen to another player, I don't think another player would have been booked in situations where it was Morelos. But no, listen, I think at the minute, if he was to come back into the team and he was to stay at the club, you've got to see a massive improvement with attitude. Not just on the park, but I think, as you say, off the park as well. If the price does come in, the right bid comes in, as a club, yeah, you've probably got to take it.
Yeah, as well. It's what you're saying there is completely true, and I totally agree with every word you've said. It's a frustration thing with Morelos because there's such a good player there. I think probably the last time we saw it was probably the Old Firm before the New Year, sorry. But that was the last time I would say Morelos has played really well for Rangers.
I mean, I think that's a wee bit harsh. I mean, he's not been the Morelos of the old. But the game up at Pittodrie in the first game of the season, it wasn't the same Morelos performance you're used to seeing. But again, he's effective in what he does. And there's obviously been a lot of talk, obviously, as carrying a lot of weight. Again, that's maybe not just his problem. That obviously is a club's problem.
I think there's a lot of players. I think there's a lot of players in every club in the same boat as that.
I don't think you can be too critical on him, as I mentioned. I criticise a lot of footballers, I criticise a lot of players, but I just think you've got to see the other side. I think Gerrard came out and made that comment about his head's been turned. And when Gerrard's left him out the squad, I think you've got to admire that as well. Because it would have been easy just to go down the route of keep them in the team, no matter what was happening, no matter who you were playing, what system you were playing. I think Gerrard's probably got him to the side. And I actually think, as I mentioned, I think there is a real bond between the two of them. I think Gerrard's got a lot of time for
Yeah,
Morelos.
I think he does as well, yeah, definitely.
But, yeah, as you say, it's just that saga. It keeps dragging on and dragging on. Nobody really knows what's happening.
I think though as well, like, because the transfer window is going to be closed towards, it's now like the middle of October, like this is the potential to drag on, and I don't think that will be good for any party. Like, no. I really don't, which I think I'll play in Morelos' mind probably more than anyone, but I think there is a thing of the player does want to play at the kind of higher level. I think as well, if a big offer comes in, I think it'll be too hard to resist for Rangers. So I would say if that kind of bid comes in, there's talk today about a bid coming in of kind of €20 million. I think that's about £18 million. That to me is big money as far as I'm concerned regarding Morelos. So I think that could be the bid that could get accepted, and I think but it's going to be a shame because I think Morelos will be remembered as a Rangers player. I think he'll be remembered well by Rangers fans, but I think, as you say, I think the media and up here have been very, very kind of poor towards him, particularly like all the stories we heard kind of at the beginning of last season regarding his personal life and things like that. Like nothing, it doesn't get spoken enough about just how much of a charitable guy this guy is. Like it doesn't get mentioned at all. How much he does for his hometown in Colombia and things like that. Like the first chance he gets, he's away, he's back in Colombia helping out his hometown and things like that. Like he's a truly inspirational character, and it doesn't get mentioned enough. But I think just for his kind of the past few weeks, I hope if Morelos stays, I hope we see the Alfredo Morelos that we saw kind of the 18 months before, because that's a great player to have in Scottish football. Yeah,
completely agree.
But anybody you want to add, John, in the list of the week?
I think you've got to talk about Morelos. I don't think there's been nothing really eye-catching else that's jumped out. I think the Morelos saga's, people talk about it daily at the minute. As a football fan, it's one of the points. Everybody's talking about it every day. What's going to happen with him?
It's a big story as well.
But no, I don't think...
Are you ready to do our predictions for the season, John? Let's get this done, and it'll probably come back to haunt us come May. Right, we're going to break down a few things. We're going to leave the champions to last, all right? Because my mind flips every day with this. Does yours, John?
I would like to say it does, but it's one of the things.
I think this is the hardest one. This is the hardest season I think ever to predict the winners. I really do. I think it could be.
I think there's massive pressure on both clubs.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, who's the pressure on more? I don't think you can't really compare it.
No.
There's a club that's going to go and try and win 10 in a row, something that's never happened before.
Yeah.
And as you say, there's another club there that's trying to stop it. Both clubs, if either club wins the league this year, it saw as a massive achievement for either club. You can't compare that to each club.
No, not at all. Right, we'll give it a start with, we'll go for the bottom up and we'll work our way towards, we'll start first of all with who do you think will finish at the bottom of the pile and be relegated, John?
I think for me, it's a foregone conclusion this year. I think it's going to be Hamilton.
Yeah, I think that as well.
Again, we say it every year, we think Hamilton's going to go down, they fight back, but I think this year, as we mentioned in the youth, that there just seems to be a wee bit too much reliance on the youth. Players like McKinnon away, obviously, another player that's obviously been about for years, Imre and stuff. Yeah. These are all players that's brought really vast experience to the club. You can't really see any experience at all in the club at the moment. And obviously that's not to be too critical. As you mentioned, obviously Brian Rice, he's done a fantastic job. But truthfully, looked at the starting 11 at the weekend, and Lee Hodgson was really the only player that has a bit of experience. That, for me, that's not enough to stay up this year.
Yeah, I think Hamilton as well. I've had Hamilton in my kind of bottom of the pile for a few seasons. I think last year they would have went down if the season had ended kind of the way, if it had ended normally. I think Hamilton would have gone down. I think Hearts would have been too strong come the finish of the season. But I think it's a bridge too far this year, and I feel a bit bad for Hamilton because I think Brian Rice, as I've said, he has done a very good job. But I think, yes, it's a bridge too far. Who have you got finishing 11th?
It is a tricky one. I think Ross County I think they'll scrape the odd one, but not enough to get them safe out of that playoff position. I can't really see much, as you mentioned. They don't score a lot of goals. They don't travel well. Obviously, we mentioned Billy Mackay and Stewart. There's not a lot of goals comes from midfield at all. Obviously, you've got Draper in there. You've got Gardy. These are players that they're not going to score enough goals, especially on their travels. But no, I would say Ross County. Yeah,
I've got Ross County. I think it's going to be probably between Ross County and St Mirren. I think for the same reason as I said. I don't think there's enough goals in both teams, but I think Ross County will kind of be in that kind of relegation playoff come the end of the season. Have you got a dark horse for the top six? Who you think could exceed expectations, finish higher than we think?
I think you've got, again, every season you've got to look at Kilmarnock.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dyer came in, again, as you say, it was a bit of a shaky start, but I think Kilmarnock at home, they're a hard team to beat at Rugby Park. There'll not be many teams, as you say, go and beat Killie at Rugby Park, and if they do, it will be the odd goal. And the likes of Kilmarnock as well, they're a club that can set up to frustrate the likes of Kilmarnock I think they've got a right good record at Easter Road. I think Killie's got a good record at Easter Road. I know obviously they lost start of the season, but likes of when Kilmarnock go up to Aberdeen, when they go to the likes of Hibs, St Johnstone stuff, they always pick up results. And I can see Kilmarnock probably sneaking into the top six. Apart from that, no one else really. You'd obviously touched on St Johnstone. That I can't see it. I'll go for Kilmarnock.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm gonna say St Johnstone. I just think St Johnstone. I think I've not been impressed with Motherwell. I would say my top four's pretty much set in stone, but I've got Kilmarnock in the top six. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they finish in the top six, but I think St Johnstone are my team that I think will sneak into that kind of final spot. I think they're pretty good. I think they played pretty well on Saturday. I think Craig Conway is going to be a massive player for them. Callum Davidson, I think, as well, is going to implement that Tommy Wright style that we've seen for so many years that's done well for St Johnstone. I think if they keep that kind of balance, they're going to be pretty good. But St Johnstone, I think, are going to be top six. I think they're a pretty good bet for that. As I said, my top four set in stone. Are yours kind of the same as mine? Are you want to give me your teams you think will finish in the top four? Obviously, we've got the old firm.
Again, it's the whole scenario. Who finishes third? For me, I'm going to say Aberdeen. I think they know what it takes to finish third. There is obviously a lot of talk of, has McInnes really done the job people make him out to have been done, because he's obviously he's not really they get to semi-finals and finals of cups and never really seem to get over the line. I think in the league, as I mentioned, they do know obviously how to finish third. There was a lot of talk in the last couple of weeks here, and as you mentioned, there's 6 weeks. People forget we've just started back. It seems as if there's been a lot of football played. I watched a part of the Hibs Aberdeen game at the weekend, and Hibs, I just don't think they'll have enough to finish third. Again, top four, I certainly think it'll be Aberdeen then Hibs.
Yeah.
But no, I'm going to say Aberdeen in third and Hibs in fourth. And again, it's a bit of lottery who finishes behind them.
Aye.
think it's going to be twists and turns all season. Certain teams I think will like playing behind closed doors. Again, when fans are allowed back in. Fans are a massive, obviously, positive for certain clubs. The likes, as you mentioned, with Aberdeen. When Aberdeen's playing at Pittodrie against the likes of Rangers and Celtic, it can be a really, really tough place to go. Likewise, going to Easter Road, but I'm going to say Aberdeen in third and Hibs in fourth, and I'm going to put my net in the line and say Kilmarnock in fifth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that as well. I think I would have, before Sunday, I would have said Hibs would finish third comfortably. I think I'm a big fan of the kind of strike partnership of Doidge and Nisbet. I think Nisbet's a great signing for Hibs. I really do. I think he done very well at Dunfermline. I think the step up won't do him any bother. I don't think he played on Sunday, if I'm right.
He didn't play at the weekend.
But I think he's probably a big miss. But I think Doidge as well. I think Doidge was kind of delivered quite well last season. I don't think there was a lot expected of him, but he done pretty well. I think though Aberdeen will finish third. I think they're well organised. The signing of McCrory, I think, is going to be a big factor in how they play.
I think the boy Hedges as well for Aberdeen seems to have started to do really well.
Yeah.
Obviously get the hat trick midweek in the Europa League qualifier, but I think Aberdeen. I think they'll just be too strong.
Yeah,
I think they'll finish third.
I think
it'll be quite comfortable come the end of the season as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Aberdeen now will finish third. I think they'll have too much. I think Hibs will finish fourth. I think they'll have enough goals. I think they'll probably bring in another couple of players, particularly at the back and in kind of midfield. I still think they're lacking that midfielder. But I think the top four is pretty much set in stone as far as I'm concerned. I think we're going to have the Old Firm plus Aberdeen, then Hibs. We'll change it up. We'll go to, who do you think will be the top goal scorer this season, John?
Again, it's one of them. I think you've got to look at Celtic's record in the league. They're going for 10 in a row. Edward, for me, is a smashing player, an absolutely fantastic player. And again, I think if he gets fit, I can't really see past him, to be honest.
No, I think
I don't think. I mean, Rangers have obviously the Morelos saga. If he goes, I don't think Roof's going to be a 20-30 goals a season man. I think Roof's more a player that's going to bring other players into it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I think he'll chip in with goals, but I can't see past Edward, to be honest with you. Possibly, I think a player that could score a lot of goals this season, again, based on the way he's been playing, is Christie. I think he could obviously hit the 15-20 goal mark, but I think for me, it's got to be Edward.
I think Edward, if he's fit, and I think he will stay. I don't think there's any doubt of him leaving unless a ridiculous offer come in. I think he's the best striker in the league by a country mile, and I think it shows. He scored 10 more goals than every other player last season before the league was postponed, but I think he'll carry it on. He's already 3 goals already so far in the season. I think he's going to add to that comfortably. I think he's going to be the top goal scorer, and I think it could be another 5 or 6 goals clear everybody else, because I think he's so important to the way Celtic play, and he is that kind of big game player that we talk about. Who have you got for player of the season?
Player of the season, it's a difficult one after 6 weeks. Again, it's going to be down to, you've got to look at both Old Firm clubs. It's one of them. It's for me. It's going to be, you've got to look at Ryan Kent, and again, I think it's all down to the price tag and stuff as well. He's got to be consistent. There's games where Ryan Kent will frustrate you more than anybody. He can be sloppy at times and get caught in possession. When he tries to come at fullbacks, at times he runs it. But then other times at the weekend against like Hamilton, he was unstoppable at times. I'm gonna say player of the season could be a flip of the coin between Ryan Kent and Christie for Celtic. And I've mentioned Christie 3 or 4 times, and the reason I have is because I think he is a smashing player. I think he's a fantastic player. But I'm going to say between Christie and Kent.
I'm torn between three. I've got two with Rangers, one with Celtic. Now, I've said earlier in this show how big a fan I am of Borna Barisic. I think he's leaps and bounds the best defender in the league by a country mile. I think he's too good to play in this league. But I just think his delivery I think he's a far, far better defender than people give him credit for. But I think just his distribution's just outstanding. So I'm going to give Barisic a mention. I'm also going to agree with you on Ryan Kent. I think Ryan Kent, if his consistency's there, I think he's leaps and bounds Rangers' best player, Rangers' biggest threat going forward. I think as well, the price tag was a big factor with him last season, but I think this season he's kind of took that now to another level. I think he's now where he needs to be. But I'm going to go with a Celtic player for this as well. I'm going to go with, I think the best bit of business so far in this transfer window was to bring back Mohamed El Younousi for Southampton on loan. I think El Younousi is a tremendous player. I think he really, really is. I was very, very impressed with him at the beginning of last season. I think he was so far in front of everybody at a certain point. I think he had a disappointment in the League Cup final, and I think after that he got a few kind of bad injuries. But I think if he's fully fit, I think El Younousi could be a tremendous player for Celtic. I really, really like his goals going forward. I think his skill, I think his technique's very, very good. I'm a huge fan of El Younousi. I think he's a very, very good player.
I completely agree with you on that. The boy, obviously, he's came back to Celtic and done a really good job for his come back. Again, is he going to hit the heights that Celtic fans expect him to? I think it's, you could probably put him in the same boat as Kent. Very, very similar to what fans expect and what these type of players should be doing.
Definitely.
I think as well, both players will probably frustrate at times. But that's part and parcel, obviously, I want to do well. I think the whole thing with Kent, for me, obviously that price tag, if you're a player at an age that Kent is, you still got a lot of years in front of him. If you're playing with a club the size of Rangers and you know that club's brought you in for that type of money, for me, every week when you stepped out in the park, you would want to show the fans the reason why. You're going to want to achieve things, you're going to want to win things. And I actually think, I watched his post-match interview at the weekend as well. You can tell that he seems quite level-headed. He seems as if he wants to learn as well under Gerrard. For me, that's all positives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And there's been a lot of signings made over the course of the summer. Who have you got for signing of the season? Who do you think is going to be most important player, new player to their team?
I think one that could be probably a signing of the season, that could be McCrory at Aberdeen. I think McCrory, as I mentioned, the type of the way Aberdeen play, it's going to suit them down to a T. They're good at going forward at times. They're not scared to get stuck in. That's the type of player McCrory is. You saw that obviously when he played with Rangers, obviously went down south and stuff as well. But I think McCrory could be a really, really good signing.
Yep, I've got Ross McCrory as well. I think Ross McCrory is well suited to the way Aberdeen play. I think it's a great piece of business for Aberdeen to pick him up. I think he'll feel very, very hard done by Ibrox. I think he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I thought he was very, very good. A couple of Old Firm games, I thought he was very, very impressive in the middle of the park. I just don't think he get that kind of consistent run of games. But going to a team like Aberdeen is going to suit how he plays. But I'm going to just give a quick mention to Kevin Nisbet at Hibs. I think his goals will be very, very important to them. I think he's very, very good. I'm a big fan of Kevin Nisbet. I think as well, as you said about kind of Ross Stewart at Ross County. If Kevin Nisbet gets kind of similar goals to what he got at Dunfermline with Hibs, I think he's another one who could make a big move somewhere else. But I'm going to say McCrory. I think McCrory just edges it for me with that. But Kevin Nisbet's certainly worth a mention.
I completely agree. I'll be honest, I've not saw a lot of the boy Nisbet. Obviously, he had a good time at Dunfermline. Another club that's probably should be punching. They're not doing as well as they should be. Club the size of Dunfermline should be probably doing a lot better than what they are. again, but no, I've not saw a lot of the boy Nisbet, so I can't really comment. But for me, Ross McCrory to Aberdeen's a really, really good bit of business for McInnes. And he will obviously slot into that team. And again, likewise at Rangers, I think Aberdeen will be able to play him in several positions.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
if needed, he could play full-back. I think if needed any injuries, he could play centre-half. But I think playing alongside Ferguson in the middle of the park, it could be a really, really hard team to beat. Definitely. I've got to say McCrory.
Aye. And we'll round it out by the one we're probably going to live and die by in this campaign. John, who do you think is going to win the league?
It's one of them. I'm going to say Rangers. I mean, for me, I think the start to the season is massive. Listen, you can't win a league season at the start of the season, but you can certainly lose it. Rangers obviously made a blip away at Livingston a couple of weeks back, but there seems to be a winning mentality at the minute. The game was wrapped up inside 15-20 minutes at the weekend. There's been other games this season that's been wrapped up really early. I think if push came to shove as well, if Rangers needed to up the gears, if Rangers needed to up it in games, I think they could. Previous years before, could they have? Probably not. They probably were stuck to playing the exact same way. And at times, they don't really alter their play. They play the same way, but I just think personnel, that there's players there that's going to take them forward this year. I think as well, we are able to come back into the team. Again, he's only been out for a few weeks, but it's going to be a massive addition to the club. Hadji, I think the boy's obviously got a lot to learn, but I think he's a type of player that is going to spark into get just a click of a button, and I think he could be frightening at times. Don't get me wrong. Listen, Celtic's got an absolutely fantastic winning record. They know how to win leagues. They know how to win cups. You're not a good, obviously a bad team. Sorry if you're winning trebles every year. We've got the players there that know how to do it, like some McGregor, Christie's, Brown, and Cham. I think it'll go down to the wire this year. I think obviously last season Rangers, when they come back from Dubai, a lot of people say things happened, and don't think you'll ever really know what happened. They weren't the same team. But I think this year it's going to be one of the seasons, I think, where a lot of people mention where the times of the past where if you played first at 12:30 on the Saturday and Celtic or Rangers are away from home on the Sunday, if you're playing first, you're putting the pressure on. And that's like the leagues were 10, 11 years ago. Maybe not as long as that, but you're putting pressure on the team at the other side of the city. And again, I think it's only good for the Scottish game. What I want to mention, I know this is maybe getting off topic a wee bit, but recent weeks the Scottish game's been talked down again down south.
Yeah.
For media, for pundits and stuff. There's a lot of talk at the moment of obviously all this whole Rangers and Celtic get down south and they wouldn't be able to compete and stuff. Rangers and Celtic's never going to go down south. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But people don't understand the size of clubs that Rangers and Celtic are.
Not at all.
So a lot of stuff on social media, like Burnley fans and clubs like that these clubs aren't even on the same comparison with the Old Firm.
Not at all. No.
But no, I think it's going to be a really, really interesting year. I think the whole thing with playing behind closed doors as well is going to help the Old Firm. I don't think it's going to help any team going to Parkhead or Ibrox. But no, I'm going to say, I'll say Rangers, but at the same time, it's one of them. I think it'll go right down to the wire this year.
My opinion changes in this every day. Well, it does, and it's a way I don't really know why it does, because your head says Celtic. Your head says that Celtic are just going to have too much. But all I keep thinking of is the fact that when Rangers were going for 10 in a row back in 1998, they did get very kind of overconfident. And could the same thing happen with Celtic? Like, that's what kind of I have that kind of wee niggle. But I do think when it comes to making a start,
what you're saying there about could that happen to Celtic, I personally don't think the type of guy Neil Lennon is, I don't think Lennon would let that happen.
No, I don't think either.
I don't think you've got a captain in there. People, you either love him or you hate him. Scott Brown, the guy knows how to win.
Yeah.
The guy is a winner. He's had a fantastic career, obviously, at Parkhead. He's been brilliant. This year, does he look a bit slower yet? He's probably not the same player he was, but when push comes to shove, the likes of Celtic's playing up in Dingwall on a Wednesday night, if they're chasing the game and stuff, I mean, they're not even talking about that, but last week at Tannadice, they were in control of the game the second half. It was one of them, the chat in the door kept chatting the door, but that's a team of winners. See, if you're scoring with 5 minutes to go, no playing well, no playing that great, and you're bringing on a player that, for his debut, that's scoring goals, that's a team of winners. And I think, do Rangers have that? I think this year, they quite possibly do. They quite possibly, there's a different feeling. I think there's a different feeling on the park and off the park, with fans. With Celtic, as I said, that if you win 10 in a row, it's an unbelievable achievement. But I think it'll chop and change. There'll be points dropped throughout the season. I don't think there'll be as much points dropped as probably a lot of people think, but there will definitely be points dropped. I think Rangers getting the start that they have, with obviously Celtic's couple of games being postponed. When the games are obviously going to be played, I'm not too sure myself, but I think that could really work this season in Rangers' favour. I think if it had been the opposite way about and Celtic could have been in front, then that's when you would really have saw the type of team that Rangers were.
Yeah.
I think at the minute there's a feel-good factor at Ibrox. Listen, Celtics had won, they've had a blip, which is obviously a major blip, the Champions League. That's huge. It's massive to the club. That should never have happened. But Celtic's been faultless really as well. Yep, they dropped a couple of points at Kilmarnock, but apart from that, they've been solid as well. Without playing well, they're winning games. And as I mentioned, that's obviously a team that knows how to win league titles.
Aye, I think you're right. I think you can't fault Celtic over the 9 seasons. They've been so far above everybody else. They've been unplayable. 3 trebles in a row. It probably would have been 4. It probably still will be 4. I just think as well, like you touched on the Rangers thing after Christmas. Like, it's been 2 seasons they've done it. Like, I just don't understand what goes on, because they're flying up until then, and then they just hit a brick wall with something. Is it a mentality thing? I think it is. To be honest. But I'm gonna kind of say it's too close to call for me. I'm going to give the slight edge to Rangers this season, just because I think Rangers now have, if they bring in a couple of more players, I think they're going to have probably a stronger squad than Celtic. I don't think they've got a stronger first 11 than Celtic, don't get me wrong. I just think Rangers have got more options. I think this season, more than ever, it's going to be as strange a season as we'll ever see in our lives. It's very, very hard to call, but I'm going to say, like, as when it comes to the start, I think Rangers have made an excellent start. Defence is pretty much where it should be. I think Kent's kind of hitting form. I think the big thing going to be, I think Rangers still need to add a striker and possibly an attacking midfielder to kind of get them over the line.
Just a quick one, mate. I know it's probably going off topic again, but just an opinion, what you think. And I know people talk about this all the time. If Rangers don't win a trophy this season, whether it be the League Cup, the Scottish Cup or the League, do you keep Gerrard, or is it does he have to go? What do you think?
I think whoever doesn't win the league will lose their job. I really do. I think if Neil Lennon doesn't win the league, I think it's probably the end of his run as Celtic manager. Through no fault of his own, I just think the 10 in a row is the holy grail for Celtic fans. I think if they don't get that, I think there will be big changes. I think I do think as well, like I've said this for a few years, I think it's probably going to be Brown's last season as well. I think this will be the last season of that kind of run, regardless whether they win or lose the league. But I think when you say about Gerrard, I think Gerrard has he's built a very, very good team. He's built a team that can contend, which Rangers didn't 2 years ago before he came in. I think he will. I think he's been brought in here with one goal, which is to stop 10 in a row. If he doesn't do that, I think he does have to go. Yeah, I think whatever manager doesn't win the league this season, I think will lose their job.
Yeah, you just obviously when you're mentioning there as well about Scott Brown, for me, if he plays, Celtic plays, and
oh yeah, definitely.
In recent weeks, when you watch it, it doesn't look his old self. For me, obviously, if I was a manager, I'd burn my team every week. And I think if Brown does leave Celtic at the end of the season, just obviously depending where he goes, I think it's going to be massive changes. Because for me, I think you've got to change a lot of differences, the way they play. You'll have to change, obviously, shape, I think, because the way Brown plays. And then just on the Gerrard thing as well, for me, it's a no-brainer. If Gerrard doesn't bring a trophy into the club this year, he's got to go. There's no question about it.
I think as well.
You've got to win a cup this year. It's all been well, obviously. Don't get me wrong; it's brilliant money for the club doing the European runs, but for me, the bread and butter is cups and the domestic cups.
I think this season it's more important though, the league. I think the league's the be all and end all. I mean,
listen, the league, as you say, obviously, the whole 10 in a row season, the league is a massive priority. But for me, adding a cup's not a bad thing.
No, not at all.
For me,
not at all.
If you're in the Scottish Cup's a big cup. If you're in the League Cup, it might obviously not be the same format as it's been in the past, and a lot of people might obviously underestimate it nowadays the way it is, but winning a League Cup for the Rangers this year could be massive, and that's what could obviously kick them on to the league. And I'll stand by it. That the League Cup last season, I fully believe if Rangers had to win the League Cup, things I think could have been a lot differently. But again, I don't think we'll ever know. Next week, Rangers and Celtic could drop points. It's one of the things, but obviously it's an international break at the weekend, and then I think Rangers are at home to Dundee United. I'm not sure who is it Celtic's playing the following week.
I'm not exactly sure, but I'm just going to touch on something as well that you kind of brought up there that I don't think it's mentioned enough. Celtic have the ability to do what Rangers don't. Celtic played very, very poor against Dundee United a couple of weeks ago and still got a victory. Yeah. Rangers don't do that. I think Livingston was the perfect example of that. I would say Rangers played pretty decent football against Livingston, but they just didn't have that kind of gritty way to kind of get the goal to win the game. Celtic have done that for years. Celtic have the ability to pull it out the bag when they're playing under the caution, playing poor, whereas Rangers still haven't fully got that yet. So I think that could be the big difference. But just when we're talking on Gerrard as well, like if Gerrard was to win 2 cups and not win the league, I still think it's going to be considered his run's going to be considered a failure. And I think it's going to be harsh if that's the case, because he's still learning. That's
always going to be. If you win a League Cup and you win a Scottish Cup, you've done something right. But at the end of the day, the main aim, as you mentioned, for Rangers is to stop 10 in a row.
Definitely.
If you don't stop 10 in a row, that's classed as a failure.
Yeah,
and as I say, on the flip side, if Celtic win 10 in a row, it's a massive achievement, huge achievement. And again, as you mentioned, things can flip, things can change every week. I still firmly believe at the minute, as much as I've not been playing well, Celtic, they just know how to get across the line.
Yeah.
And come the end of the season, could that obviously prove key? It probably could. But again, I think injuries as well. Celtic's not got the biggest squad by the looks of it this year.
No, that's what I've
for example, if Christie picks up a knock, McGregor picks up a knock, they don't really have the personnel to come in and play the exact way the players play.
Yeah. Edward was injured. Edward's been injured for the past 2 weeks, and they've been a completely different team without him. So he's Ayeti's probably the long-term replacement for Edward when Edward eventually does move on to bigger and better things, but Edward's still the main man. Edward's still night and day the top player, but when we're talking, you're mentioning about Gerrard as well. I think Neil Lennon and Steven Gerrard have got the hardest jobs in British football this season, because there's one that we can talk about. Europe's a big factor, and the cups are a big factor. One of those two managers are going to win the league this season, and the other manager's going to lose their job, because that's just the way the old firm is and the way it works up here. We saw it when Rangers nearly get 10 in a row. Wim Jansen came in, won Celtic the league. The next day, Walter Smith was away. Walter Smith would probably be regarded as one of the best managers in Scottish football of the last 30 years, but he didn't. Would you consider that he didn't do the full aspects of the job, and ultimately paid the price because he didn't win 10 in a row, and that was the holy grail for Rangers fans? Is Neil Lennon going to fall victim to the same thing if Celtic don't win it? That's what we kind of need to look at. But it's going to be very exciting. If you're a neutral, it's going to be a very exciting season, because it's going to be neck and neck for the whole campaign. I think it's going to be much different this season, because I think there's going to be no winter break. So I don't think Rangers are going to have that 3-week spell of coming off a big win. I think that was probably one of the biggest things. I think the Rangers were hitting form just at the time where they then went on a break, whereas Celtic needed the break. I think it's going to work in vice versa this season. I think Rangers will probably be better off without the winter break, whereas Celtic won't be. I think Celtic needed the winter break the past couple of seasons, whereas Rangers didn't. The winter break's not there now. So it's going to be very, very interesting, and I'm looking forward to an exciting season.
Completely agree, mate. As I say, obviously, I think the worst thing that could probably happen this season is obviously the no crowds. So I personally think this season, I think the whole thing, we keep mentioning 10 in a row. I think you probably saw attendances higher as well this year. And I think obviously when fans can get back into the ground, it can only be a positive for Scottish football. I think hopefully you see attendances rising, because in recent years you see some of the stadiums and they're empty. Even when the Old Firm go, they're empty. And I just wish obviously Scottish football would get a bit better press, shall we say. As I say, it gets really talked down south. But no, listen, it is exciting times obviously in the league. Things are going to obviously chop and change. Not just the Old Firm, but I think the race obviously for third this year's a bit more exciting than what it's been in the past. So I know there's definitely a lot of positives to take.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. That's all. That's us pretty much done. We're just going to recap. We're just going to preview what's coming up next week. We've obviously the international break, so Scotland are back. They take on Israel at home, and they're away to the Czech Republic in the Nations League. John, do you think the international should be happening, considering what we're all dealing with now? Do you think that's a wise decision?
I personally don't. Again, it's one of the things that's got to happen, isn't it? These games have obviously been planned for months, but I personally don't think it's a great thing. It's one of the things, obviously, now players come back, if they get the virus or whatever, seasons can be stopped and stuff. I personally don't think they're needed, to be honest.
I think it's too big a risk. I think there's going to be a lot of issues with that, particularly with players going abroad, like the likes of Barisic is going with Croatia. We've got the likes of, I think Edward was meant to be going with the France under-21s. He's pulled out. There's too many risks. I think it's the internationals. I think we could kind of do without until we get a better idea of when we can resume kind of travel and things like that. I just right now, but until further notice, we're going to be seeing them. Scotland have announced a squad. We have. I think it's going to be a big conundrum for Steve Clarke, because he's got three options for the goalkeeper. He's got Rangers' John McLaughlin, Livingston's Robbie McCrory, who I think is another exciting young prospect as far as Rangers are concerned, and David Marshall. John, if you were Steve Clarke, who would you pick to start nets out of those three?
I think Clarke will go for Marshall. I I think he's going to pick Marshall. Marshall's been in the Scotland squad now for years, and he's had a brilliant career. But I mean, obviously, we had mentioned John McLaughlin there. He's not really had much to do, really, the games he's played this season. But again, people say he's played well. He's done well in what he's had to do. But I think he will go for Marshall. You mentioned obviously young Robbie McCrory. You're on Robbie McCrory, sorry. So you mentioned him there, but I'll be honest as well, I've not saw a lot of him, so I can't really comment on. Obviously, the boy's got ability. You wouldn't be at Rangers if you didn't have ability.
Yeah.
But it's good to see, obviously, a young player like that getting into the squad. I think Marshall's going to get the nod in between the sticks.
I think you're right. I think it will probably be David Marshall, but I think John McLaughlin as well would be another good option. Like, as you say, I don't think he's put a foot wrong since he's kind of took the spot at Ibrox. Up front as well, we kind of heard in the last couple of days, Ollie McBurney and Lauren Shankland have pulled out, and it kind of leaves only two options up front. Lyndon Dykes has been called into the squad to make his debut, and there's Oliver Burke as well. Like, it looks as if it's going to be Lyndon Dykes, but alarm bells ring to me just how there's very little options up front.
I know it's easy for us to say, and obviously you criticise, that's a natural thing to do, but when you look at the success Northern Ireland's had in recent years, you look at the success of other countries that, no disregards to them, but they probably shouldn't be competing with Scotland on the international stage. I think he brought in Callum Patterson as well.
Yeah, I think he's just been called
for
in,
Cardiff, yeah. And for my personal opinion, I think he's absolutely woeful. I think he's dreadful. I think it's just one of the things, I don't like saying that, but Callum Patterson, he's not an international footballer. Again, the whole thing with McBurney, he scored goals with Sheffield United, but for me, he shouldn't be playing international football. It's just one of the things. The Scotland squad, the last 3-4 years, listen, I like to see them do well, but there's no enjoyment in the way there used to be years ago. Scotland games are coming on the telly nowadays. There's a lot of football fans out there that's actually not even watching it. That's not the way the country should be, but there's just no excitement at all. Likewise, obviously, you mentioned as I mentioned there, the last 3, 4, 5 years, Wales, another country, on paper, yeah, they've got some good players, but there's nothing really like massive. I know they've got Bale and Ramsey and stuff, but like in Northern Ireland as well, there's not really world class players, but there just seems to be, their countries seem to be going in the right direction. I don't know if that's behind the scenes, the way it's been run, or
I think
whatever it is, but
I don't
Scotland just seem every year as if they're going back the way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that you look at the squad in midfield, like midfield they're pretty good. Like John McGinn, Ryan Jack, Scott McTominay, Callum McGregor, Ryan Christie. Like they're decent players. Like they're good, but I think the problem is as well, like there's not enough centre halves coming through, and there's not enough strikers, and that's the two big positions as far as I'm concerned.
I completely agree.
But I will see what happens. Like as far as I'm concerned, I think the international should be on hold, but we're getting them. It's a week off for the clubs as well, but we'll be back next week with a look at what was going on with the Scotland team. Also, any other big news comes up, we'll be here to talk about it, and we'll be previewing the next weekend's games. But I can just say thanks very much to John for joining me in this show. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Fantastic. But no, listen, it's good obviously to talk in football again. Obviously we'd missed it there for months, so it's good to have it back, and it's good obviously to be talking about things that people agree and people disagree. So no, I really much enjoyed it, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. And I'd just like to say as well, if you are wanting to follow us on social media, please follow Facebook/SM Media, and you'll catch us on Twitter and Instagram at SM Media ENT. Also on YouTube, please give us a subscribe, and also on iTunes and Spotify. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. It's been a pleasure to talk to you all, and we'll see you next week. Thanks very much. Cheers.